there's judges A through Z, police officers A through Z, service people A through Z. There are a certain type of victim slash hyper victim, specifically to have them react and or non-react, and then learn from those reactions or non-reactions through and by a breaching method that orchestrated campuses A through Z. This breaching method was able of torturing countries easier than, but just as easy as it did with individuals. Northern colonies and southern colonies, more than 13. And there was more than one country involved with that. See, we have the experts that were shown they need to hide live aggressions for how they were used as victims, not knowing how to respond properly. This breaching method did things to cause the only people that could operate the phenomenon of the names of countries as the locations, areas, and states names everywhere the species body is. Made them blame other things, others, or selves for what it caused and keeps. And then it made counters to that incorrectly blaming on other things, others, or selves, its roles. And then defending that, and then more and more on sides forced by nature, but not really by nature, but by nature only as criminal insidiousness. And nature was and is showing this, as the breaching method knew it would. Also be containing demonstrations to us that all these different subjects have this breaching method commonly that they're about. They're all valuable. All those affronts on women's rights, those affronts on the communications of nature itself regarding Black people's rights of eyes, and what our founders left declassified about this. Instead, the names of the people of the sciences were shown they need to hide. How they already had self-value collusion /S with those narratives and natures in the books. Note the school book depository. You don't have the names of the people of the sciences, therefore the names of the law experts capable of defending themselves and affording a fact cheap nature quality that we are and were capable of being instantly, let alone when we have the World Wide Web. See, but the whiting forensics with these other countries, Bob Chase has roles with the UN. See, but with guilt, there's a breaching method involved. In other words, Judge Napolitano has a source who quoted Lyndon Johnson saying that he was reported to have said that he would rather have sailors sink to their death than respond in a way that would offend Israel. See, people take truths and they go fishing with it. They're using other people's reporting. You see what I'm saying? And they have all kinds of collusions with private criminal enterprises originally and still. Nature showed us, all of us agree. People who pretend not to, they can't get on paper because we were able to discern. In other words, a breaching method caused a whole bunch of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. That which had slavery entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies. People still hear, people don't know how to, people say, oh, our founders owned slaves. We were supposed to defend them by saying we were directed by our founders to understand why and how they didn't have the security to let us know their names. And the only founder that we know the name of specifically was James Madison. And we were shown, they declassified why and how there were layers of reasons and interests while people and things why they did not have free speech. And there was an overriding breaching method that had use /S of before America was born, the countries that had remote possession of the colonies from abroad, individually grouped in together. They had it sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly, northern colonies and southern colonies, more than 13, and then America's founders were born. What kind of a nature of unity, what kind of a nature of independence could be while everyone was coming out of collusions against everyone else and themselves, syntactically, therefore physically, that they didn't want, but the breaching method only allowed exceptions made. Measured with maintained with internationally monitored conversation. Laws where it was against, and everyone even heard people. I learned in notes at Central Connecticut State University, even if it was made up. In other words, we're supposed to understand that those databases were criminally foreign influenced and tactically delusions wrought. All those records were aimed at keeping the defenses of the syntax then in the future too, to keep defenses of that incapable of defending that. And the reporting discerned the breaching method's hyper sophistication over all the identities of sophistication. See, suits and ties count as exceptions. Why, from America to Russia to Ukraine, they're still living in houses. The suburbs were designed tactically denatured to have as a negative identity of relationship to nature. So specifically, so nature, while it was demonstrating the breaching method's roles with that, it was also demonstrating negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature regarding the infrastructure, but no one was allowed to go into those details. No one was allowed to appreciate those negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures as they were being communicated actually by nature itself. Natural law is real. We are an individual species body made up of a whole bunch of individuals. And all group differences, to an extent we could discern, because there are other species bodies with male, female, with two eyes, with needing to eat, needing to have food, water, clear air. The whole ocean is polluted because Earth's special difference is going away through us, because we have been systems that no one wanted collusion /S with, but we have simultaneously made all self-valued roles. Oh, but we didn't cause that, and we were making syntax anyway, and you're speaking for reason. Then you pretend it's debatable when people don't leave those things out. Oh, well, then bring it before the courts. When did the courts stop having collusion /S in every country? And then further, all groupings of countries. Worse than criminal incompetence stands before kids. And then too, they have the arts too, backing them up with the same illusions. In other words, stand before kids and blame other things, others, ourselves, for what nature itself was. We have black pupils, whites of eyes. You don't blame our founders for slavery. There's no excuse for it. The only excuse is proof of the same /S of the same thing. The educators of the campuses came through sick campuses. They're incapable now as adults. And as the people countering, incapable of even having a proper appreciation of all that, just relative to the syntax in the books at the school book depository associated with the assassination of President /Chief Kennedy and of Americans since founding. Unless everyone was entertaining that fake identity of integrity that can't defend its logic, its principled treatment, and us at the same time. James Madison's plan is replaced as the only correct answer for what caused the Civil War. And we know that now because it was declassified. Instead of having they use their knowledge of good and evil, the people who know the most about American history, to stay pretending that, well, look, this is what was the records. Our founders declassified for us. Those records were criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, a part of a method /S. Northern colonies and southern colonies, sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly, they both even had roles, replacing what nature with slavery. And right through the Civil War, we're supposed to understand James Madison's plan forced the North and the South to fight against slavery, syntactically to an extent /S, even though it was against the laws that were entrenched, not just as internationally monitored conversations, collusion /S, measuring and maintaining. Everyone rolls with it to an extent, otherwise that body sensed through their own, including as a majority of people and easily adapted to, including as everyone. Well, black people's whites of eyes, and those we know we want that counter. In other words, anyone who denies it too, people come into the conversation, say whatever. That they say, "Oh, take your meds" when you report a World Trade Center attack, predicate acts, and with child abusers, leaders of kids. Hartford Hospital has a Demorals Market where it is now in Rocky Hill, and where it is in Weathersfield, with the houses and businesses next to it as families. And as the families at Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living, the triage there, and lawyers associated with them. And they have wire crime, mail crimes, fake transcripts, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and with their patients and criminals. Because no one ever stopped having collusion/S, needing to hide things in the future by planting things now, as the breaching method shows and showed them. Years apart, I never had a conversation with them. People tied to an I forgot his name. All along Hangdog Lane and Two Rod Highway, people will tell you they were influenced by foreign and domestic intelligence and their educators and people tied to them, even if they don't understand it that way. For federal evidences crimes, for fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, with people increasingly involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart, all kinds of identity theft, fraud, slander. I don't know Letty Triglia. These are people too that pretended they knew me behind my back, with extended family members of a neighbor of mine named Kalo, involved with them, with former mayor Gold and other mayors, and relatives in conjunctions to them, like a Ruth is next to the Board of Education in Weathersfield, and they have names forging and switching and using that a part of increasingly interbranch too, because they have roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders. That the breach that just manifest that way, they have to do identity tricks and sequence shifts. A breaching method shows them that. These are also people involved with prison rapists. A Sandy Hook prison has collusion with the Principal Bean, forcing him with retired Weathersfield police chiefs and intimate ties, involved with foreign and domestic medical families. These are not legitimate roles with the military associated with this O'Brien family and this Cololo family, involved with Weathersfield police, attached me to fake conversations with them and being at the police station, speaking with them as a kid and then as an adult. And these are ones increasingly involved with the World Trade Center attack, time collusions with Saudis, and their roles with Trinity College Intelligence and Central Connecticut State University, and their roles with the difference of guilt there, or their roles with the names next to the campuses who are connected. That's in Hartford, Connecticut, and New Britain. They increasingly have collusions with people on predicate acts on my street that were hiding live progressions, and roles with untimely deaths years apart that were brought up at the same time with murderers' roles, confessions, and with the use/s of such recorded. These are people involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones at the same time, and with various natures of federal criminals, some of them as co-defendants of a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in a 2006 district court case. These are also people with remote uses, with planting the same federal evidences crimes, predicate acts, collusion/S, with all sides of cases, interbranch and intelligence. Then they pretend, oh, but that's what the case proved. They're putting fake transcripts too into those databases. All ages and natures of investigations. Investigators have been used remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusion, draw. A CN Faglione's family sought me out to verbally and non-verbally record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They have federal evidences crimes, identity theft, frauds, and slanders with various courts and medical families and houses and businesses next to Hartford Hospital, with people on Two Rod Highway and Hangdog Lane in conjunctions to it and to that. In the corners of the street of a principal child abuser. And they have roles with abuses of a daughter of a principal when I went there, used time to abuse me for identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. I never had a word of conversation with her. Mr. Murphy's daughter. John Maiano's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by others tied to him. involved intercities with sequence shifts and with federal evidence crimes on my street, with the police departments intercities involved with the people named Colo and Tomorrow, and the military families, and them pretending passions and emotions. Nothing. This is to help you guys, the military. You pull those fakes on paper. See, Facebook, they took my Facebook pages multiple when things were confirmed to me on Facebook regarding a path before and after the World Trade Center attack. The FBI and courts and overt criminal enterprises, private ones, foreign and domestic military, people next to body dumping spots years apart. They had time collusion slash S with uses of that too at the same time and untimely deaths. And their roles with proven child abusers, leaders of kids, all things that connect them, not a pattern, all kinds of connections. And as use of location slash S and the difference of guilt at location slash S or next to it or conjunctive to it is manifest. These things sound complicated, but they are not. They're just extensive. So you need to get the interbranch off the fake conversations with me and the changed ones with the with the news. Put totally fake conversations with me, fake ties to me, including with doctors as a kid and as an adult. They've been doing this to other families' kids and their adults in their family. And they speak about that's how they keep that state. They're confessing to you. Fox News has collusion slash S with sexual and medical offenders of kids. And with pretending, oh, but that's the doctor, so we have to step up. It's no way. They have collusions with the doctors putting fake things in the transcripts. They have world collusions with the sexual and medical offender spots next to the place. I didn't even go in there. Increasingly, there are sexual groups next to Trinity College and next to Central Connecticut State University who have roles also with religious cliques that are involved with the sexual and medical offenders of kids and identity theft, fraud, slander, saying things, and then when people describe it later, it makes like someone look like someone that responded. These are also putting fake transcripts with interbranch and foreign and at campuses to make it look. Campuses film 24/7. They just put fake transcripts on them. Right? Probably not even audio recorded. And they're just putting fake things recorded, fake evidences. Increasingly, there are ties between people in the Britain campuses, intercities, next to the campuses. How I caught this is a phenomenon tied to how they had collusions with the World Trade Center predicate acts. And then they brought in all these things and threats and things like that. And I stay calm. In other words, and two, because I noticed since I was a kid, if anyone tries to speak about American history, I'm not the only one who notices. Whether you guys realize it or not, you have black people's whites of eyes to discern that only fake integrity spoke for black and white and the impositions upon that, which is where it's upon one, it's upon both simultaneously. It is just manifest where and how it is exploited distinctly. You guys think the honesty spoke for the impositions upon the people of New York City? They pretend they can't discern that. It's different now. See, when a president, even if the president slash chief said that, he didn't mean it. In other words, we are individually grouped and together humanity voicings by the only people allowed to be heard. At countries A through Z at the same time, sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly, with that being have been used remotely while everyone's pretending other. As the way the breaching method knew they would have to. And it shows them they have to preemptively because of things in the past, actively, and to hide what's actually to come. Detail, quality, aspect, nature, proper, necessary to counter the nature of criminal insidiousness behind that breaching method that reassigned black people's whites of eyes communications in our very founders' communications. It has self-value collusion slash S with the names of the people, the scientists, the quote experts, with their syntax used and their nature used too, to pretend things that are debatable or not, changing and faking what people say about predicate acts, hiding, obfuscating, all kinds of them. They can't deal with obstruction of justice because they were built on it, and collusion slash S here and there. You think you guys have prisons? The prisons are increasingly with the same house slash S that tied to proven first child abusers, leaders of kids, and they have recorded roles with the first forced part, as families too. This shows the little kids and the adults of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and of the interbranch of the names of the people of sciences. And counters to that they all need to hide the same sequence shifts at the same time, the actual value of their words and of their nature treatments. Only criminal insidiousness natures of calm speech and subject treatments or of aggression are allowed to be heard. There's a Mark Levin who has roles making allegations and trying to make, well, this is my evidence. They're hiding their sequence shifts and collusions with their differences. There are some Jewish themed. There's a Jewish themed educator I have who made some. I'm responding now. I did not respond in that class to her at all. She's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed too by my other educators involved with the Fred Grisette and the security with some sexual medical offenders of kids. A Fred Grisette all along Route 3. And as others who came on my street not knowing me to plant evidence, I didn't go to school, he went. He had roles with people. He said he made confessions about his roles with abuses of modern pastry and other people. And this is recorded various ways. But you guys don't follow mandated law since I was a kid because you already had collusion / yes with all kinds of things. Every instance that came before you. In other words, the preaching method uses the databases since before our founders were born, since before computers. It used the algorithm. That the identity is about. See cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall / S, and how we are shown. Identity's value progression per how we are and why we are shown. That water and the cells appreciate the cell / S appreciation, the body of life of plants, for example, appreciation of gases in their mixture, of water and its elements, its nature. And this is the science that showed the ancients how to cause evolution's fruits, gifts, and means out of nowhere, including where and how we are fact treatment nature. We are quality as fact treatment nature distinctly from how we are quality as physics, but non-distinctly. And this relative, because there is an extent we can discern more than just for how it is generating totally distinct identities of species bodies, made up of all individual bodies, and with distinct and with quality aspects in nature that are distinct but also non-distinct, so that we could discern we are distinct from them, we are non-distinct from them, and we are simultaneous from them, with them, but also per a further distinct identity of simultaneous nature per science. And this is where gods, the name for gods, and why and how we need to have different names. Nature shows us that too. It's a part with nature showing us how it is functional. Its body, a value progression, being hyper invisible but still discernible, distinctly from how its identity of value progression is the invisible but still discernible too. And they are both increasingly valued but distinctly, but non-distinctly / hyper, but non-distinctly as that identity of value progression that is all things, well, not by any way. Even if we make up art, it is distinctly the order of the finite, from how it is the order of what is active and or grouped, and from how it is simultaneous. Nature shows us that its body is what we are appreciating, where and how we have to appreciate more than one name for a verb, and why and how we have only two participle natures to appreciate, and two sexes. Those are two invisible but still discernible parts of the rest of nature's complete identity of relationship to itself that is inseparable from any individual part of itself. The individual part of itself is equally increasingly valued, with the grouped part, with itself as grouped identity / IES. In other words, and from simultaneous, it is increasingly valued as a simultaneous nature, distinctly from how it is increasingly valued as a hyper-simultaneous nature. And when we examine this, it shows us nature is showing us the rest of its complete nature, how it mixes. It will only mix with temporary / lasting space nature one way. Here, or it forces demonstration / S that we are, were, or the moment we will be using systems abridged from its own. The Constitution Unabridged is about this, because the Constitution Unabridged is about our nature. Unabridged free speech by what nature is capable of showing us to be quality of fact-keeping nature. There's a difference between using expertise and knowledge of history, for example, to get over on. The only correct answer, that, in other words, the breaching method forced people to lie about their actual motivations for roles with James Madison and the unknown founders behind him and his plan, which the plan was to counter-extort everyone, force everyone. See, we have other explained at the founding locations. They are used to sense for the breaching method, where it shows them to go out, pretend to be against kings. Because that's also used. If they're pretending to be against kings, and then they're defending that, this breaching method, measure, maintain, they can't defend that. And Ford discerned what was entrenched and how and why our founders did not have free speech, and they directed us not to allow the people to refer to our founders as any other one than James Madison, without understanding why and how they were unknown founders. See, if anyone even allowed other people to be honest about George Washington and his extortion, like he asked us to be honest about his extortion, it would have brought up James Madison's plan and the founding fathers, plural. So we can, in other words, so whoever the colonel was, who directed people to, one of the only things that all Americans remember is don't shoot until you see the whites of eyes. You guys were trained how to fight, how to speak for strength and weakness by a hyperforeign breaching method. You are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought victims / hyper victim predators. That way, 3 ways: per victim predators, hyper victim predators, and the / between it as a standing criminal insidiousness as countries A through Z. That's relative. That's one of the things recorded where and how and why suburbs were designed. You guys could pretend that it's debatable. You can't afford to have the evidence is discerned. All kinds of natures of organized crimes backing the people who pretend they have the honest opinions about how the suburbs are manifest as an identity relationship to the ground, into nature's identity relationship to itself. Nature's nature, if you will. Because it is increasingly valued here, or it is forced from here as forced space nature transfer as lease of IDs. This is more probably and demonstrably and more practical to teach about what pantheism was about. And while we are a republic that relies upon it, and it means to teach us to discern beyond isms, including, we name anything and we're speaking about the invisible but still discernible alone. See, there is one identity of value progression that none other could mimic. Like how and why. We know that not our species body nor the other species bodies generated why and how they're totally different species bodies. There is something that is non-distinct to all parts of space / existence. And why and how they're distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous / hyper simultaneous space / existence has to do with its identity of volume to the extent we could discern, which comes with its complete identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that here, or again, as if forced from here, as Earth's a special difference, as our own, but through us, it's for space nature transfer. The only reason we have reasons that we discern, but we're being led by the hyper invisible, but still discernible. The only reason we have self-guided roles, with being systems tactical, even going to outer space. It's not just don't be led by this, more so than by the physical reasons, no. Logistics of the it's because the breaching method has been using remotely countries A through Z, differences A through Z, voicing for humanity. Otherwise, it already has them too, showing they need to sense anyway. Even you speaking about James Madison in the founding plan that forced the Declaration of Independence. Oh, the Constitution is not caused by something forced. See, they want to have debates like that while they know in the back of their mind there was slavery entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies. You don't stand up and pretend they're about a tea tax and pretend not to realize, and really not realizing their delusions wrought too, because they came through either are educated. But this can all be changed. To heal your soul, follow mandated law. Get me off the big conversation with the British Spirit Court and the people involved with the state judicial branch offices and the corrections offices, increasingly involved with predicate acts on my street and intercities. Judge Napolitano, please get his heard. Get this heard. Make sure I'm heard by Judge Napolitano, because the news and the interbranch won't get on paper legitimately because they've been stacking big things, but not alone. And as Connecticut's rules of the World Trade Center attack, and with the names interstates, time, collusions, both sides of a case, and names on both sides of the case, and the court itself, forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to self-value collusion /S. That's recorded too. It was proven afterwards. There was someone had affected insidiously, had been affected from inside the court. Legal papers had been brought to the court and time-stamped timely. Then someone changed it from inside the court. But that was presented to the panel of judges the morning of the World Trade Center attack. And names on both sides of the case that in the court itself were also forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to collusions against me that are recorded, with the ones forging and switching names interstates with cases the same way. All sides of criminal and civil cases, as the ones involved with the principal child abuser further. And the interbranch refusing to get on paper, forging names, switching names, making confessions about their roles with multiple, switching officers' names, putting a charge but no writing, and then putting God knows what fake writing into the databases. New Britain Superior Court increasingly has collusions inter-cities and intra-cities with people from other police departments and retired Wethersfield police chiefs in their intimate ties. And they also pretend they want, like an O'Neill family. I don't even know them. They have their kids planting evidences with whiting forensics and with the principal being and more sexual and medical offenders of kids. They're putting their kids for fake. I don't even know what they look like. And there's a Leahy family too with their kids involved with identity theft frauds. They fake ties to me and through the mail, but I can't get a response. They use mail and wire crime acts and methods, the interbranch, that are recorded too. So we have to get communicated online. This also brings up where and how we could discern, as the breaching method already showed them, at countries A through Z, they have to hide the actual value of the readings of statutes and precedents and of exceptions regarding what's the value of what is said online. There are increasingly collusions with organized crimes acts and methods in trying to persuade the internet companies to collusions with them, the World Wide Web companies. Twitter, they hid this from Elon Musk. But then I tried to tell Elon Musk, then they had May Musk come on, or someone pretending to be her. No one wants to play games with the FBI with the obscure pictures recorded on Twitter. A whole bunch of people tied to and as a principal child abuser involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and various natures of federal criminals, overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and people who have roles of home brain kids on my street who are increasingly tied to kids of leaders of kids. Get the heck on paper with them, one name in sequence, and get them, in other words, increasingly all along Route 3 of Mr. Neville and people who had conversations with me. I never had a personal conversation with him. I had one sentence, I spoke about it before. I asked him, where's my poem? He never gave back my poem when I was in 8th grade. And these are people increasing. I don't know Eric Olson and Matt Olson. They have roles planting evidences with people tied to a Mr. Neville and his roles with all along Route 3, like an apartment building on Route 3. He has collusions with people interstates with that, foreign and domestic intelligence. What are you hiding there? And why are you making me tell on you guys with that spot? A DeMoro family and Heather Hansen has more people with child sexual and medical offenders involved with the with a Donahue family there. I don't know. That might be a general associated with the general with the other countries involved too. With UN, Whiting Forensics is increasingly involved with collusions with those people there, with the Wethersfield Police Department and the courts intercities and their family members, with a whole bunch of people who planted evidence on my street years apart, and collusion / us with relative federal crimes. Get them on paper. Watch how I show you. Get me off the fake news.